In times of war, you have to become war. This is a review of Rambo, a cinematic adventure sourcebook for the Everyday Hero system. Let's dive in. So here we have Rambo, a cinematic sourcebook compatible with the Everyday Hero system, published in 2023, and of course, developed and produced by Evil Genius Games. So let's go ahead and read the back. To survive a war, you gotta become more. Soldiers like John Rambo are forged in the fires of war. They answer the call to serve their country with their lives, and they do it like few ever could. Provided with the best training and equipment available, they give it their all, carrying out their orders and upholding the patriotic ideals their nation is supposed to represent. Their adventures and exploits are legendary, but war is hell, and no soldier walks away unscarred. Whether the wounds are of the body, the mind, or the soul, victory always carries a cost. Strap on your gear and prepare to go behind enemy lines in Panama as a covert ops force during Operation Just Cause. Your orders are clear, but not everything is how you were told it would be. If you want to get home with your life and conscience intact, you will have to make some tough decisions and fight for both your survival and what you believe is right. Just like with the other source books for the Everyday Hero system, the introduction catches you up to speed with the movies. In this case, it goes all the way up to Rambo 3. You even get a nice history lesson of notable wars from 1955 all the way up to, I believe, 2005. We get 8 new backgrounds to use that fit well if you're looking to play someone from a war-torn country. So we have things like the refugee, the remote village, small town, tunnel rat, traumatic, veteran, violent past, and the war orphan. So really nice array there. In terms of professions, we get 6 new ones, such as the aid worker, the arms dealer, diplomat, the sheriff, the special forces operative, and then we have the special forces career path, which allows you to create your own profession. You choose which branch you served or served in, whether you are enlisted or an officer, and then you pick your basic training from this list. And then last, you get to pick your feat or feats, depending on if it's a major or a minor feat. There are a whopping 5 new classes, although there are some suggestions on which classes from the core fit very well. First up is the Combat Engineer, which is a smart hero. The explosive expert's plans allow them to disarm any explosive device, blow up a structure, or even cut power to a single machine or an entire building. Next is the Combat Medic, another smart hero. Wow, this system really likes its smart heroes. Their plan allows them to gain advantages and bonuses when an ally drops to 0 HP, heal critical injuries during a short rest, assuming that you're playing with those rules, or remove certain conditions. Then there's the Combat Scout, an agile hero who is good at hunting and vanishing in stealth, and that's pretty much it. The commander is a wise hero who supports their allies on the battlefield by providing advantage on the frightened condition and making it easier for your allies to hit an opponent who's already been attacked. Last is the survivalist, a tough hero. To me, they kind of seem like the ranger in terms of Dungeons and Dragons, as they get benefits to a terrain of their choosing. There are 12 new feats, although 10 of them are multi-class feats for the 5 new classes. Bloodletter allows you to deal 2 points of bleeding damage when you score critical, assuming that the weapon can do that. And then there's Weapons Expertise, which allows you to use double your proficiency bonus instead of using your ability score modifier, which can be very interesting at later levels. Something of note is the equipment list. The weaponry is historical in a sense, which is nice if you're playing that kind of a game, like from the 70s or the 80s. Then again, you can pretty much just take the stats of any of these pieces here and give it a name that's more appropriate to your setting if that's what you need, especially if you're doing something more modern. The vehicle list has also been expanded to make use of like historical tanks and helicopters as well. So really nice if you're looking for something like that, although later on in the adventure, we are going to be making use of some of this. I feel that graded challenges have been a thing primarily in narrative-focused games. The premise follows that merely passing a challenge will not grant the best result. Instead, you want to dominate by succeeding above it. So, for example, if we roll a minus 10 or under of the target number, then it's considered an epic failure. Or if we get a 0 to 4 over the DC, that's going to be a close success. So close success, you accomplish what you needed to, but only just barely. There may be some unanticipated complications or issues. Actual success is 5 or 9 over, 5 to 9 over. Everything went smoothly and it worked out just as you wished. And then an epic success is having 10 or more above the DC. So the result is far better than anyone could have expected. Basically perfect and possibly with unanticipated benefits. So get some nice bonuses there in a narrative sense. It is worth it if you like to add a little bit of depth and variety to your challenges rather than just, a mere pass or fail option. Because one of the new classes is the demolitions expert, we do have rules on demolition. But the one that's really interesting is collapsing buildings and burning building rules. With the collapsing building, you have a chance to either use dexterity to dive out of the way or use strength to avoid being trapped by debris. With the burning buildings rules, you make a dexterity saving throw every round, and the DC is 15. On a roll of 1, the victim gains the burning status, and if you fail, then you take 1d6 fire damage. Bleeding is now a condition. There are about 4 different levels of bleeding. Level 0 is basically you're not bleeding. They're just really small cuts. Whereas if you have a level 1 bleeding, it's going to be light for about 3-inch or a greater cut. The victim cannot recover hit points at that point. Level 2 is going to be heavy bleeding. And it's going to have everything from level 1, and you also take 1d6 damage at the start of your turn. Level 3 is massive bleeding, so same as level 2, which means you're also going to have level 1. And the victim gains a level of exhaustion at the start of their turn. So death eventually, basically. There is a first aid DC to basically stop the bleeding for each of those. Hopefully you have some bandages or things like that. But it's 5 for the first level, 10 for the second level, and then 15 for the third level. So hope you have somebody that's really good at medicine. There are rules for fortifications which act like traps mechanically, but are used for more defensive purposes than offensive ones. So we have things like the breastworks, decoys, foxholes, spider holes, pillbox. We have tank traps, trenches, tunnels, watchtower, and then wireworks. There are also some traps here that are more in theme with the warfare. So you have things like a grenade trap, a minefield, a rockfall trap, or a spring spike trap, which is pretty nice if you're if you have characters that like that kind of thing, or if you're being pursued and you want to set a trap for your pursuers. And here comes the obligatory spoiler warning. If you plan on playing through this adventure, then go ahead and ask your GM first. Unless you are the GM, then go ahead and keep watching and listening. Flesh and Blood is the adventure for the Rambo source book. It takes place after Rambo 3, and in it, Colonel Berrigan tasks the heroes with locating and extracting an individual embedded in a drug cartel before the US invasion. But things aren't really what they seem. In Act 1, the PCs receive their orders and choose their loadout. En route to Panama City, the Chinook is attacked and crashes into the jungle below, and now the PCs must navigate a jungle and find a means to get to Panama City on time. The PCs will find all sorts of encounters waiting for them, such as a farmer and a wife who can help them out if the PCs play their cards right, or attacks from the jungle's nastiest critters, and a Panamanian Defense Force or PDF checkpoint. PCs can even encounter US soldiers who are in need of help, and doing so will of course waste time, but they're also the good guys, right? Once they make it to the designated location in Panama City, they find that their target is no longer there, and there are 2 possible locations he's fled to. They can either go to Nueva Bento or the Cerro de la Sangre Santa. Whichever option they choose, they will still have to find a way to get there, and that may mean seeking help. They better hurry though, because the invasion begins around this time. In Act 2, the PCs are either traveling to a Nuevo Bento or Serra de la Sangre. Either way, there's more fighting to be had. Nueva Bento is a dead end, and Cerro de la Sangre leads to the cabin their target is hiding in. Speaking of their target, his name is Larry Berrigan. The PCs will find out that he is, in fact, Colonel Berrigan's brother, and the whole mission is unsanctioned, meaning the PCs have been played. Act 3 begins with Troutman, the guy from the movies, explaining the details of the ruse. The PC's next task is to bust Larry Berrigan out of imprisonment to prevent his reunion with his brother, and thus begins a big breakout, complete with a chase. This whole section has been a ploy to find out who is really dishing out secrets to the Soviets, and all roads will point to Simon Villalobos, who is hiding out in the hacienda. The PCs will have to battle a Soviet spy to get the information, but once they do, they can make the hike there and commandeer a tank for some awesome chaos. Once they've apprehended Villalobos, the PCs can radio Troutman for extraction, thus ending the mission. The end of the book lists all the NPCs used in the adventure, as well as their stats, and even more towards the end, we do get 2 characters from the movies. We get stats for Rambo, of course, and then we get stats for Troutman, because I guess we really needed somebody else as well. So why not have Troutman make an appearance at some point? I mean, he did technically make an appearance in this adventure, so... There are also 5 pre-generated level 2 heroes to use that make use of the new classes found in this book, such as U.S. Marine Sergeant Young, who is a charming manipulator. One of them is a tough survivalist. We have a smart combat engineer, another combat medic, a combat scout. And that is everything in this book. All of the Everyday Hero System source books add something unique to the game. In the Rambo source book, it's historical warfare gaming. So if that's really what you're into, if you're looking for like a military style historical game, then this is definitely the one that you're gonna want to get. I think that the new rules are really interesting, especially bleeding, and the adventure itself is fairly satisfying, especially at the end. When you get to the big payoff, where you're just going around in that tank and just causing all sorts of chaos. In a way, it kind of reminds me of like 007 GoldenEye for the N64, or even some of the older Call of Duty Modern Warfare games. If, however, you're looking for something a little bit more modern than, something that's set in the 70s or 80s, then Evil Genius Games is actually coming out with the Military Heroes, which will go out on, I think, GameFound later this year. So definitely look for news about that and check that out when it actually enters its campaign. Anyways, that's going to do it for this video. Feel free to leave a comment down below. Give this video a huge thumbs up to support this series, and I will see you guys in the next video.